Welcome. That's my Take podcast. Today we're gonna do a little bit something different. It's just me today. Gonna look into Survivor pools. So if you don't know what Survivor is, you pretty much usually it's like $20 a year. Or you can play free. I think on FanDuel or DraftKings. You pick a team a week to win a game, and as long as they win, you move on to the next week. And the challenge is you have to pick a new team every week. So example, say I went with the Bengals week 1, I cannot use the Bengals the rest of the year. So it definitely includes strategy, and that's where we're going to kind of jump into it. So this week, week 1, obviously, I'm going to try and give away what I think are the best plays of the week. So going into it to start, my 5 favorite plays, or at least the plays that I trust the most this year or this week, is the Ravens against the Jets, the Colts against the Texans, Broncos against the Seahawks, Falcons or Saints against the Falcons, and Niners against the Bears. So what I'll say about those is those are your 5 plays of the first week where you're good. I think you don't have to worry about them. They're going to win pretty easy. You're going to move on to week 2. What I will say, though, is week 1 is kind of a week where you got a long ways to go. Survivor is definitely something where you want to use the worst team possible, if possible. Injuries help you out later in the year. Like, look at last year. The Giants were already a bad team, and a guy like Daniel Jones got hurt. They had Mike Glennon starting at quarterback. You could have just picked against them every week, and you had a free win. But to start right away, you don't want to necessarily pick a crappy team, but you want to pick a good team. So my thinking for week 1, my number 1 play is the Broncos. And my reasoning for that is, if you can see the chart a little bit, I'm covering it a little bit because I don't want to give away everything for the future weeks because stuff changes. This is just off of right now. Seahawks is who they're playing. There's no way they lose to Seahawks. I'm calling it now. Like, call me bold, whatever. I don't care. There's no way. 0% chance. They're playing in Seattle. It's Russ's first game. If he loses, that would be amazing for the storytellers, but I just can't see it happening. Personally, I just think the Broncos, besides week 2, don't give me much else after the year where I'm like, yeah, like they easily win this game. Where a team like the Saints, I think they're going to be very good. I think they do. The Niners, I think they'll give me a lot of chances with a pretty fairly easy schedule early on in the year. The Colts are a team that I think gives me a lot of options later on in the year, especially in that division. And the Ravens is a team that I think easily gives me a lot of options. So besides, out of all those 5 teams, I think the Broncos are the team where besides week 1 and 2, they don't give me much. And week 2, I already have other good options. So I want to get rid of Denver week 1, in my opinion. I think Denver is also a team where who knows how good they could really be. We've seen Sutton and Judy go down with injuries before. What if they both go down? You never know. I mean, you got to think about stuff like that. We don't know how good they really are going to be. I have them as a 10-win team, which is very good. Not usually you want to use a 10-win team on the first week. But for me, I think you kind of have to, because in Survivor, you want to be safe and you also want to have educated risk. As far as my next play, I guess it would probably be the Niners, because I think I have them week 2 is when I want to use them. You could just flip-flop them in the Broncos if you feel better with the Niners against the Bears and then Broncos against the Texans instead Niners again and Broncos against Seattle. That's completely fine. As far as riskier picks, if you want to go down that route, one of my maybe picks was the Bengals against Pittsburgh, but personally I'm not touching that game. Pittsburgh is not a bad team. They have a really good defense, and Mitch is not that bad. And I don't care what anyone says, Mitch is not that bad. Mitch will be fine. I don't think they win that week, but they could. Another game that you could go, which a lot of you might not think is risky, to me it's risky, could be biased as a Giants fan, but I think you could go Titans. It's not even necessarily me being a Giants fan. If you look at the Titans for what you can see, I have absolutely nothing green or yellow for them besides later in the year, the 2 games against the Texans. I do not think the Titans are a good team this year. I think their offense is going to be really bad besides Henry, and I think even then they might run him into the ground and maybe he gets hurt again. And I think the defense is very bad. So as far as the Titans, I don't want to touch them against any team, especially the Giants. Week 1, you never know. Maybe Saquon has a good game, especially if it rains, which they think is possible. It's just not a game I want to touch. There's really not many games I want to touch. Another risky pick you could go with is Miami to beat New England. If you're a big Tua and Miami fan, they don't really give the best options later on in the year. So using them now might be honestly the best time to use them. So definitely you could consider doing that, going Miami. I actually might even consider doing that myself, looking at it now, because I don't hate that pick. And then it gives me Denver week 2, and then I can move the Niners back to another week that I would need later on. So that's definitely something I'm considering maybe doing now. But besides that, there's really not much to do. I think the play of the week is definitely Denver. And if you really break down the schedule and stuff off of how you think stuff might play out, I think you would agree. It's just one of the few games Denver they're gonna win, and there's so many weeks later on in the year that you actually will have access to have these good teams if you just play it smart. I think in my hopeful planning that I did, obviously it's never gonna play the way that you plan it to start the season. I'm taking a team that I think is going to be really good in playoff contending every week, but maybe once. So it gets to the point where it's like, if I'm only taking a risk once, it's pretty good. Last year, I was very risky to start. I did, I think, Denver early on. I did the Niners week 1 against the Lions, which wasn't risky, but I mean, it was probably the safest pick I took in the first 6 weeks. I took Washington against Atlanta. I think eventually you're going to see weeks in that you can take risk when you watch these teams play. For now, you want to just be safe, I think, week 1. You want to pick a team that doesn't give you much value later on in the year, but is definitely going to win week 1. And I think that's Denver. I think Denver's that best team to pick for week 1. So drop down in the comments, I guess, whatever you think the number 1 team is for week 1, or who you're going with. Let me know if you think Denver is on upset watch or any of the teams I said is on upset watch. And I guess that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and peace.